Hi, Chris here, Product Manager for Trijicon Optics, and today we're going to talk about mounting the RCR. And we're going to kind of go in depth and talk about some of the tips and tricks that I use that hopefully answer a lot of your questions you guys have about the RCR and the capstan mounting system. So first of all, let's talk about, well, what do you get with the RCR when you purchase it? So what you'll have is the box, the manual. You'll have some 243 Loctite. You'll have the mounting card, mounting tool, and 3 sets of capstan screws. The different lengths you'll get with is the short MOS 632 capstan screws. You'll have a medium 632, a medium length 632 capstan screw, and then you'll have one long 640. And that was more specific for the FN 509 and the FN platforms. Available on our website are all these capstan screws. So you can buy short, medium, and long in a 3-pack, or you can buy a variety pack of 632 or 640 capstan screws. Another big question we get is, well, what capstan screws go with what platforms? And if you go to the link below, we'll have a matrix that'll have all of those different platforms and what capstan screws we recommend with you. Majority of those platforms, the MOS or the short 632 and the medium 632 should work. But again, go to the website to confirm, or if you still have more questions, please contact customer service. So now we're going to talk about mounting. And the first thing is, what do you need when you're mounting your RCR? So of course you're going to need your torque card, your torque tool, have your capstan screws the proper length. After going to our website, you found out what you need, so now you got those already picked out. And then Loctite, acetone, and Q-tip. You can use a different Loctite. I recommend the Fibertite BC3. I've had a lot of good results with this. I really like how it works. Or just use what we provide in the box. All work really well. Now, why do you need the Q-tips and acetone? Well, you're going to need to make sure you clean out the screw holes as good as possible, so they're free of all debris, any grease, or anything that might degrade the Loctite capability or disrupt how your threads engage with each other. Next, pick up your platform and check how your mounting interface works. So do you have a plate or is it a direct mount? If you have a plate, make sure that the plate is secure, it is the proper plate, and it's in place prior to mounting. Also, you want to check your recoil bosses, and the reason why is those play a very pivotal role in making sure that that optic is secure under recoil onto that platform. So if you have some of these newer models that have the removable recoil bosses that you can move around depending on what bolt pattern you're using, make sure you maybe put a little Loctite on those to make sure they're secure, because again, that recoil boss plays an integral role in keeping that optic on that platform. Next, you want to check and see what kind of screw holes that you have. So there's 2 kinds. There's open, which will go straight through the slide into the mechanisms, and then there's a blind hole, which is more like a cup, so there's no exit for anywhere to go. And it's important to identify this, because what will happen in some cases is you put a Loctite on your screw and you're screwing that capstan screw down, a vacuum will get created in that blind hole and push all your Loctite out. And you'll have no Loctite on your capstan screw, and you'll have a bunch underneath your optic. We recommend when you're mounting your RCR that you put your Loctite in that blind hole and then puncture it with either the tool or a thin, say, drill bit. That way you kind of get that air out and push it out, and then that way you can prevent the blowback or the blowout of the Loctite. So now we're going to talk about the 2 methods. Now, you've seen this in prior videos. It's the single and the double screw method of mounting this. So again, prior to mounting, make sure that you've got Loctite in your blind hole, and you also have Loctite on your other screw. So the single screw method is where you take one screw, you start it in one of the screw holes, slide your optic on, seating it properly over the recoil bosses, and then you put the other screw in, and then you start screwing that down, alternating between each until both are fully seated. The double screw method, again, apply your Loctite, put both screws in the slots on the RCR, put your optic on the cut, ensuring that it's seated properly over the recoil bosses, and then again, start screwing down the capstans, alternating between each until they're both fully seated. Once they're fully seated and secure, take your torque card, insert it into the slot, start from your start point 4 marks over. to get proper torque on the capstan screws. Now, my method's a little bit different. I like to make double sure that my capstan screws are torqued down. So I'll push back those 4 marks to another 4 or 5 marks, almost to the tool is starting to bend. Now, it should note, now a lot of guys be like, you're going to strip them, you're going to over torque them. You can't do that with these capstan screws. You're not going to be able to strip them. So if you're going a little bit past our recommended and you're bending that tool, you're going to be fine because these screws are extremely durable. You're not going to strip them out. Now that we have our optic mounted and our capstan screws torqued down with Loctite applied, you're going to want to let it cure and sit for 24 hours. So if you're going to the range and you're mounting up, do that the day prior or earlier. You don't want to just mount and go straight to the range. You need to give that Loctite a proper amount of time to cure. We recommend a full 24 hours. That way that bond is completely solidified and you know for a fact that that optic is secure on your platform. So you've mounted up your optic, you're on the range, you've let it cure for 24 hours, you're shooting in that rare occurrence that you're getting capstan screws loosening. I'm going to go through some tips for you to check to find the root cause of that, so you can correct it. First, we're going to talk about screw length. Again, we've talked about the different lengths we have. Double check to make sure that you're using the correct screw length as we recommended at the website, the link below. Now, why screw length is important? Because you can have too short of a screw, which means you're not having enough thread engagement, or you have too much and it's bottoming out on that blind hole and you're getting kind of a false torque reading on that. So you think it's nice and tight, but it's actually not because it's bottoming out on the slides. The next thing to check and look at is your recoil bosses. Now, some of these platforms that have the recoil bosses you can move around, check those and make sure they're nice and tight in there. Like we recommend throwing some Loctite on there, because again, that recoil boss plays an important role on keeping that optic secure on that platform under recoil. Final thing to consider is the mounting system. Now, we always recommend using a direct mount system, but sometimes you have to use a plate. We recommend aftermarket plates because that plate plays a pivotal role in securing that optic to your slide. Hopefully this video has answered a lot of your questions about mounting the RCR to your pistol platform. If you have any additional questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to our customer service. Go to the link below for any questions you have in regards to what capstan screw length goes with what platform.